I want to talk quickly about some ideas as to how to develop the synthesis essay. So I provided some material for us to read concerning robots, humanoids, the future of artificial intelligence in terms of what it can do in industry and what it can do in those areas of our experience that involve social interaction. I want you to remember that Program for Love, that review that we read a couple weeks ago, is part of the material I want you to consider. So you have already read that, and now you've read a new batch of material, which includes things like India rejecting Facebook's internet. Now, that is not robot per se, artificial intelligence per se, but that does speak to the spread of digital technology. Okay, and we can bring that in a second. But there was the other one about Moxie, the robot that is marketed to children. There's Marionettes Inc., a short story by Ray Bradbury. There is an article from CNET that you needed to look at. And I think one more, go ahead and look at that batch of material. And what you need to look at is you need to recognize that, it's all tied together with this notion of digital technology, artificial intelligence, robotics, the internet, the spread of this, the fact that it's being developed, and that it's being disseminated, okay? And what you need to be able to do when you start synthesizing sources is that, you look at them as a collection and you try to find ways that most of the material in the collection can support an observation. So I want you to spend time thinking about these topics, thinking about what it means to consider the fact that we might have a shortage of workers at elderly care facilities, and how could it hurt somebody to have a small robot that it's not even a robot, it's just a smart plush toy, if you will, with a computer chip and a way to sense speech and to react and to purr and to well, what's wrong with that if it helps an older person who is alone, perhaps, make it through the next hour? You know what I mean? So I want you to think about things like that. Well, why did India, not want the free internet? What were they suspicious of? What were they afraid of, if you will? Another way to phrase that is they were being extremely cautious about something. What were they being cautious about? To the point where they were willing to accept the sacrifice of, not having the service. So, oh boy, here comes another parakeet. This little guy is Chico, and I raised him from, well, his mother raised him from an egg, obviously, until he was 2 weeks old. Then I got him, I fed him, he's very tame. Come here, boy. Come on. You want to say hi to the camera? Huh? Want to say a few words? Okay, so, it's pretty obvious that I let these birds fly around. I promise you, I clean my house every day, and I don't have any carpet, so that's a big plus. But once they start flying around, it's so hard to keep them in the cage. They really are incredible animals, very, very smart, much smarter than you think, especially when you raise them from a very small chick. Anyway, I digress. Okay. Why did Ray Bradbury write that short story the way he did? Marionettes Inc. is not a real company, but Bradbury had a real thought about whether or not we should be using robots to solve social problems, right? And what I want you to be able to do is I want you to be able to to come up with something to say about this. And you don't have to use every source. So that's a mistake that sometimes people make when they try to write a synthesis paper, is they try to use every source they find. Or, if they're given a collection of sources, they try to make all of them work. And there might be a work, you might come up with an idea, right, that you want to pursue because it's actually a good idea. But, that article about selling luxury goods on the metaverse just doesn't fit. Okay, it doesn't fit with your observation. Your observation allows you to really tie together maybe 3 of these sources. Perfect, that's fine. Do not try to force the other ones in because they just don't fit. But I would say let's go for a minimum of 3. If you can find an observation, an idea, a thought that you can use 3 of these sources to support, you know what I'm saying? That's what we want. Now, if you use 4 or 5, that's fine too, as long as the fit is organic. All right. You can't force these things to do stuff they just can't do. All right. At that point, your paper is not going to be well written. All right. Now, I said you need to come up with a thought about these things, some of these things, or an observation, an idea, and that's sort of vague, isn't it? And you might prefer that I use the word thesis. Come up with a thesis. But the way we use that term, especially in high school education in America, public school high school education, and then in our college freshman classes, is too constricting. A thesis is often viewed as a debatable comment about a current issue that can be seen in terms of yes, it's right, or no, it's wrong, or yes, but, yes, it's mostly right, but there are some things that are, or no, it's mostly wrong, but yes, there are some things that are. So, should we have an expanded welfare system? Should we expand welfare? Some people are going to say yes, absolutely. Others are going to say no, we shouldn't. Nope, nope, nope. And then you're going to have 2 other groups that say yes, we should, but under these conditions. And then we'll have a group that says no, we really shouldn't, except for. And you can see this about abortion, you can see this about immigration, you can see this about so many things. So this is your basic pro-con paper. The pros versus the cons, and then you pick a side, you pick a. And we kind of think that is the persuasive paper, and then the main point you're trying to advocate is your thesis. Okay, that is one way to look at that, and that is a legitimate type of analysis and text, but there are more types of theses than just that. There are more types of arguments than just that type of argument. And I want you to expand your ability here. Okay, an argument is anything, any belief, any conclusion that needs reasons. Okay, so if you have one premise or one fact, and then you have another fact, and when you put the 2 together, they lead to a third one, that's an argument. It's as simple as that. That's the basic definition of an argument. An argument is not an altercation. Although, well, what I'm saying is, when you have an altercation, when you have the debating sides, yes, no, and there's this conflict, so hopefully the conflict is ideological and verbal, but sometimes it moves to the physical, right? But, well, yes, that we refer to that as an argument, right? But that's just one type of argument. Right. There are other types of arguments, and the essential quality of an argument is that it has premises that lead to a conclusion. Okay, so an argument doesn't always have to be controversial in that way, right? It can be an observation that you have that is complicated enough so that when you tell your observation to somebody, that person says, "Now hold on a second, that's kind of weird. What are you talking about? Can you explain to me why you believe that?" And as soon as you can imagine someone saying to you, "Can you explain to me why you believe that?" That means that whatever you presented to them, right, is complicated enough or obscure enough or original to you enough so that it's not obvious, right? In other words, another person is going to say, "Well, I don't really know what to think about that." And kind of what you're saying, "I don't know, talk to me some more. Tell me, because I need more information. I need more reasons. I I need more before I can just say, I believe you, or I'm with you. Or even before I can say it's possible for someone to believe that in a reasonable way, right? When you have an observation like that, and your audience is going to call for more explanation, more definition, help understanding, then what that main idea you have is complicated enough so that it's not immediately obvious, right? So you want your observation to be nuanced and complicated enough so that, it merits explanation. It is not an obvious statement. Because if it's obvious, why do you need an essay on it? It's obvious. You know what I'm saying? I mean, in one way, that really is a valid objection to, if it's obvious, why do you need to write a book about this, So I want to I want to throw that challenge out to you and say, look, can you come up with an idea, a thought, an observation that, is the result of you spending a couple hours thinking about this and using these sources. And even I'll let you do this if you have a source or two from the outside that you know of and you can bring in, like I know a movie called Frank and Robot, and I might want to bring that one in if I have the right idea and if I know it fits. Okay, I just need to see you use at least 3 sources to try to support a notion you have that needs support because it's not immediately obvious. Okay, now how would we kind of work this? How would we work this with, can I give you an example of kind of something that would work? Now I really and truly am kind of flying blind here, sort of, and I do want to try to provide an example for you, but it's going to be very rough. Okay, it's going to need a lot of work, but it's something that can get us started right now. One thing I noticed is that, Gucci has a land presence and it has a history. Yet it's able to sell, it's able to strip everything away and go straight to the heart of things, right? Which is selling its name. That purse doesn't mean anything unless it says Gucci on it, right? And that's what makes it worth, $500 or whatever. So why don't we, in the metaverse, you are allowed to, as a merchandiser, to strip away the material, aren't you? And to come up with a virtual purse that says Gucci. Now, as long as you own the copyright, that 5-letter word, right, is precious. The word is precious, and you own the word in the metaverse. And you own the space it can appear in. Now, of course, you can't stop it from appearing in everyday speech, but you can stop it from appearing on a purse that someone's trying to sell. You see, you own that space. So I feel like to me, that's very interesting, that people are willing to spend real money to build an identity in the metaverse around brands, and that the brand, the real brand, the material, the company is happy to accommodate, right? So right away, I know I've got that little article from CNET, but I think I might want to watch some more YouTube videos, or I might want to try to find some more material online just to learn a little bit more about that, right? Because then you have Moxie, don't you? Now Moxie, how much is that robot? And to what extent, I don't know, there's just something that doesn't seem to be right about that. Can a child who is a human truly believe in the long run in the validity of the social interaction that's happening with that robot? Or will they eventually say, man, this is just make-believe, and it's not the same as when I talk to my brother or my sister or my dad or my mom? To what extent do those real life stories that you get in that website, to what extent are they curated and they're actually coming from a very specific niche of this market, which would be parents that are dealing with very challenging children who do not want to communicate with other people? Now, how do I know that? I don't. I'm kind of guessing. So now maybe I need to read a little bit more about Moxie, but it seems to me that the parents are finding some satisfaction in knowing that they're providing something of high quality to their kid, even though that thing is doing the job that the parents should do. Read a book, talk to the kid for a while, right? And to what extent is the fact that you spend a lot of money on something help you feel better about it? Now, what can I do with that? And where can I go with this? And what is in some of the other material that might help me back this up? So I don't know. I mean, I've got this curious question, right? And that's how you start, is you come up with a genuine curious question or an idea that's kind of half-baked, and you kind of knead it in your hands a little bit and spread it out and see if you can make something out of this. And if that's the case, then what? And see if you can come up with a statement. Something like, the human need to be valued allows for a merchandising space of humanoid devices that exploits the real value of the product. That needs some work, right? But I'm trying to say basically that we have some needs. Kids need education. Kids need somebody to talk to. A husband needs a certain type of marriage relationship. I'm thinking about Bradbury. An older person needs to not feel so lonely. We have human-centric needs, but it's so hard to find another human to fulfill those needs. To what extent could merchandise come in here and say, I'll fill the need, but it's going to cost you a lot, because the more you invest in something, the more you think it's precious. So that's why my prices are going to be poof. Now, you might disagree with me on that. Okay, that's fine. I'm not asking for an idea or a thesis or an observation where it's not possible to disagree. This is not math. This is very slippery stuff here. And your job is not to come up with something and eventually to persuade your audience of it. Your job is to say, here's my idea, here's my observation. I'm using this source and this website and this movie to kind of explain this. I'm not even going to say support it. I'm just going to say explain it. And I don't know if it's true or false right now. It makes sense to me, and I kind of believe it. And here are my reasons why. And I think that's where you need to go with this sort of thing. If you can get your audience to say, okay, that's possible. That's possible. That's the first step. And then if you can eventually get them to say, after you give the explanation and whatnot, well, that's even probable. It's possible, and it's got some probability to it. Okay, think of the probability spectrum, all right? From one end to the other. One end says, no way, there's 0% probability. It's a 0. And the other end is like, it's a sure thing. It's 100% probable. In fact, it's certain. That's a 1. Between 0 and 1, you have 89% probability, 50% probability, 30% probability. To even get on that spectrum, you have to show that your idea is possible. And then you need to start getting it to move from the 0, or whatever. Is this a 0? The 0, try to get it to, so that your audience sees, that's got something to it. That might be the case. It's possible, and it's kind of even probable. If you can get your audience to say that, or to admit to that, that is success for this type of writing. Because even if you show them all that can be shown about this, that crazy audience might just say, I'm just not ready to believe it. I'll decide when I'm going to say yes to that, or when I'm going to join you. So you can't control that. You can't control their belief. You can only show that something is possible. And then once you get there, You have to work towards the probable. And the better you build your case, the more it's going to slide up that scale. And that's what you need to be doing, okay? So don't try to come up with an observation that is like rock solid, you know. It's going to be hard to do. And if you're really pushing for that, you might make the other mistake just because you don't have a lot of time to think about this and of coming up with just a straight up obvious relationship. I mean, the obvious observation would be like, robots are going to play a large part in humanity's future. Duh, you know. You don't need an essay for that. Almost every literate and intelligent American is going to say yes to that. So you don't need support for that. You don't need to explain it. That's obvious. Now, I don't want you to think that's not important. I mean, that's a statement, and you can use that statement. That's just, you can't write an essay about that. I don't want to see that essay. I want to see something that's a little more nuanced and complicated and a little. So this is hard, but you can do it. Look at those sources. Add a couple more of your own if you want to go searching online. And then once you have the collection of 5, 6, or 7 things, and I don't have to see the stuff you add, I trust you, but just then try to find 3, at least 3 that would support, you know, a unique observation you have about anything here, anything. And remember, let's go for at least 3. If you have 4 or 5, that's great, but I want to say you don't have to use every single one, because one just might not connect to your idea. Your idea might be cloistered around this little group, this subgroup, if you will, of material. And that's fine, because that will allow you to produce a work that has integrity. It doesn't have any cracks. It doesn't stretch itself too thin, right? It creates interest, it maintains it, it rewards it, it's focused, and you might have to leave off some of these sources in order to make that happen, okay? So your job going forward is to eventually write an essay about this, but let's just start with coming up with an observation. And it can be tentative. I'm going to ask you to work with this, say on the discussion board. Put it out there and try to explain why you believe that observation. But please understand that you can change it as you go forward, okay? Because you have a week to do this, and within 2 weeks you might have more ideas, and you might want to take a different direction. That's completely okay. But right now, let's just try to get started with an observation that uses a couple of these content materials to buttress itself up, and you need to articulate that and explain why you think that's the case, and what allows what allows you to think that, and post it. Then go to another person and see it, review it, respond to theirs, give them something to think about. All right, and we're going to start moving forward using this material, okay, towards the end goal, which is to write a synthesis paper on this. All right, good luck.